Hey, this is DJ Amaya back again with a video updating a little bit of what I'm using with Bitwig Studio on Linux. I've been using Bitwig on Linux since it very first came out. About a couple weeks after it first dropped, I bought it and I've been really loving it. It's overall it's very similar to Ableton with a lot of the best features from other DAWs added into it. So it's a great, I think for me, is a great solution because it kind of took having a solution to a viable, comparable software to Ableton for me to get fully off of dual booting between Windows and Linux and just going full Linux, because I definitely before that was dual booting for, I want to say, maybe 3 to 5 years or somewhere around those lines. There was like a transition period where all my day-to-day activities were done in Linux, and then when I needed to produce, or if I needed to, or if I was DJing, I would be using Traktor or Ableton within Linux, within the Windows system. So once Bitwig came out and I opened it up, and it seemed to do everything I needed it to do, and it was stable. I was definitely into that. Over the years, I'd tried a couple different DAWs for Linux, and I just hadn't really been impressed with any of them to the point where I could really switch. I really tried with Adour and LMMS and a couple of the tracking ones, but just none of them really had the feature set that I needed as someone kind of based in Ableton and Cubase and Pro Tools and things like that over the years. And I just really needed that full features for that. So along the way, as with most producers, you have your favorite plugins that you like. You have your favorite things that you like to use, and a lot of times that's really what stops people. A lot of people that are out there, probably like me, where we're just waiting for replacements for what we really like, so we can really just be on the operating system we like. So with Bitwig, the biggest hurdle after the main DAW would be the plugins. And I think over the course of my using it, I've really came across a lot of great alternatives and solutions for the plugins that we can't really get on Linux that we actually can. And I think those solutions, if they're more known, more people will be willing to give it a shot, because I mean, it's really not hard to put a dual boot on something and give it a shot. The hardest part with Linux Pro Audio, I've noticed, is just learning how to set up your system with jack audio and getting that running good. I will recommend using Cadence, which is something that, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of from the Kubuntu Studio line of programs and distribution, but you can get it for a number of different distributions, and it's kind of like a happy little configuration tool for jack audio that's a little prettier than the stock ones available, and it kind of has things, the options are in a different way. And if you want to see, here's my settings I use for jack audio. I use a Focusrite Scarlett 6i6, and this latency is pretty good. The block latency and the in and out, the through latency is really good on that sound card. And it does work with Linux, although you do have to, if you want to adjust some of the internal mixer stuff, you have to do that on a Windows system, and then but once that's done, you can pretty much just leave it as it is. That's just like the internal monitoring. Anyway, so that's how that is. Once you got that and you got your system running up, Bitwig's great. If you're in Ableton and you're used to that, it's really not too much different. You still have the same kind of, this is your arrangement window, this is your mix window, which has your clips and stuff like that, which should seem pretty familiar. It's got the modular interfaces similar to Ableton, but with a few extra tricks it can do. It's a very familiar interface from someone coming from Ableton, which is what I really liked. So that being the case, what we got here is one of the tracks from my recent EP, and it's called Highway. This is a pretty simple track, so I was able to show this without my buffer going all mad while doing the screen capture. So if there are some dropouts in the audio, that's why that is because I'm doing a screen capture on here, and I keep my buffer pretty low, as you saw, and I really don't want to mess with setting that just to record this. So let's take a look at what we got going on here. So one of the things about plugins is the first thing, I'm going to get this out of the way first, I guess, is the first thing is a lot of people are going to be like, well, I got to have massive, I got to have insert plugin there. The best solution for that right now is there's a bridging software called Airwave Bridge, and it works really great. And you have the full functionality of whatever plugin you're using. It doesn't work for every plugin, but if the plugin that you like to use works with it, it's great. And it's just one less thing you have to search out to find a replacement for. For instance, would be a really good example would be, let's take a look at what we got here. That's okay. Oh, this one here, see, is SQ8L is a free VST synth that this is running off of Airwave Bridge, and it just shows up as just as any other LinuxVST plugin would on your system once it's bridged. And the bridging process is really simple, and you have all your functionality. You can still map everything. When you go to the parameters for it, parameters are there, the presets are there. Some plugins will expose the automatables there, and some won't. It's kind of a toss-up. Some plugins are a little finicky. Like I know I'm a really big fan of, let's see here, this guy here, W1 limiter. It's a free limiter. And for instance, I had to use the GUI version, and then I had to rename it to where the plugin file name was not uppercase or something, and then it was able to work. So it runs off of Wine in the background, which is a Windows emulation layer that allows Linux to run Windows software, and it works great. So here, I can show you this real quick. So Airwave, so this, everything bridges through there, and you pretty much just load that up, and you tell it where, you point it to wherever your plugin file is at, and then you tell it where you want to put the bridged file at, and then you point Bitwig to that bridged file folder, and it will find the plugin. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. So you're gonna have to play around with that a little bit, and kind of goes with a lot of bridging software, regardless of operating system. But that is a solution for a lot of things. There's not really a whole lot of really good limiters for Linux that like really good high-end mastering limiters that you really want. Some like Pro-L or Oxford limiter like I got here. I use Pro-L a lot, and that does work really well in bridged, and you really don't see any performance hits. All the plugins behave normally, and they don't take up any more CPU usage really to use. So it's definitely a win-win on that, and it's a free bridging software. Just Google Airwave Bridge, and I believe the GitHub or the SourceForge page comes up, and it's in the Arch user repository, so that's the easiest way to get it, to be honest. But if you have a Debian-based system, they do provide a deb file on the SourceForge if you look carefully enough. They also have a list of plugins that they know work and don't work. So that's one, Airwave Bridge. Definitely, that's something. Once I came across that solved a lot of problems. I think I went maybe a year and a half before I started using that, and been really happy with that, because there's definitely some things that I like to use, some free VSTs and some bigger ones. Like I use the Addictive Drums demo a lot, and that does work bridged, and it works great. So really glad to see that, and the limiters. So that's first of all. I have used Massive on it before, but I'm not really into Massive, and it's a little glitchy as far as like it does crash a little bit. So I tend to not like using stuff that crashes that much, so I stopped using that. But you know, mileage may vary. The other main thing that I've been using a lot is all the Uhi plugins. I'm a big fan of their plugins, and their stuff is all over my productions. If we go to, let's see here, let's go to mix. Don't really need to see that. Okay, so if we look at my mixer view here, you can see that I'm using Hive and Zebra 2 a lot, which is really typical for my tracks. And these are excellent soft synths that regardless of whatever OS you're on, so I recommend them. Hive is gorgeous sounding, simple, and the unison on it is great. Really low CPU usage, so I'm really digging that. I reach for that almost first thing every time. Zebra, of course, is awesome, very similar, but a little bit more flexible with its modular setup. It's also really good for basses. Really good, free, available for Linux native is OBXD, which is great. This just got taken over by DSP, the guys who do Discovery Pro. They took over the project and they're maintaining it. It's still available for free now. It's got some new skins, and the presets now work within Bitwig, which is great. Before, you weren't really able to load up presets on it. So let's take a look at what else we got going here. The sampler. When you're in Linux, the sampler built into Bitwig is pretty nice. I do miss the ability to pan individual voices in Ableton, but overall it's a good sampler. I use a lot of sound fonts that I find online for free. Like this one here is a really good sound font that someone made from the Vienna Strings plugins, which, let's see here, hold on a second. Oh yeah, I think I have the frequencies all the way down here. I'll bring that up again. Yeah, so that's a really nice string sound. Saves having to get like a really crazy sample library for that. It's a stereo sound font. Great. I mean, there's stuff out there. There's also an Emax 2 stock factory sounds converter out there for Linux that you can get the factory default samples as a Emacs disk, and you can convert that disk file into SoundFont 2 files, and I use that a lot too. Get some really cool 80s sampler synth sounds that are really great. That's a great resource for free sounds. On here I got sample stuff. The drum machine in Bitwig is very similar to Ableton. You still got individual effects channels for all the samples. As you can see, I think on here, maybe I'm not using it there. I know I've been known to use the sausage fattener, which does work in the bridged airwave bridge. It works good. Let's see here. Let's go back. Let's see. All right. Yeah, let's turn it back down. So let's take a look at this track. So this is the completed version of the track. Nothing here is mixed down to audio really, except for some of the effects, but even then those have effects on them that aren't printed, I think. Yeah, like I have tal delay on this crash here, and yeah, lots of more of that tal dub 3 is a really good delay. Just sounds right to my ears. The stock Bitwig delay, for some reason, I don't like how the tail is on it. It kind of grates out. I don't know. So if we look on here, we'll loop that. So what we got going on here? We got this guy here. It's a very simple Zebra 2 setting, just one oscillator, unison, a little detuning, a little automation on the cutoff. It's not bad. Very stereo. That's using this guy here. This is another bridged Windows plugin that I've just always loved, and never really could get the same sound from anything else as far as getting things stereo. Use this Haas setting, and you can either turn this on or off, and you just get a great wide sound. So we have it soloed here. If I disable it, it's just straight up mono sound, but that instant wide, and it's great. You don't really run into a lot of those phasing issues that you run into with some chorus plugins with that one, so I like it a lot. This guy here is an instance of high. A little bit of filter on that. If you review that here. It's my little fade impression there from one of the presets in Ableton. It's got a nice effect rack for that, and I just kind of made my own version of it using a bunch of I use a bunch of Bitwig effects to get a similar sound. So yeah, that's it. This guy here is at OEX, which is great. It's got the individual panning on the oscillators, which makes it really great for stereoized sounds. As you can see, you got panning for each voice, so it's kind of a random left and right thing with each voice. It's great. Use that for plucks a lot too. This is that SQ8L. It's got the preset for the B3 perk bass or whatever. It's that house bass sound. You just go to that preset, do the little post processing on it. It's just that's the sound. I love it. It's one of the reasons I like that synth. So of course the side chaining in Bitwig is great. Very, very similar to Ableton. Actually, if anything, it's almost more full featured. It's got a nice side chain effect on it, with individual gains and everything. It's great. It's got an expander built into it. But that's just this project. So let me go over some of this other stuff here. So let's I'll just open up a new. Actually, here we'll just do this. Just create an instrument track. So going on to different stuff. If we go to my library here. Category, there we go. So synths. This is a native VST. The Linux is great aspect, and that's a premium one. So, which I'm a big fan of using proprietary stuff when it's good, and I definitely was happy to get this guy. I don't use it that much lately though, but it is really good, and if I need something different sounding, this is great. It's got a nice unison on it as well. I think there's, let's see, this guy. This guy has a nice sound. Which is kind of nice. So Aspect is really, really awesome. Basil, another one I use a lot. But it's kind of CPU intensive, so I'm not always using it. It's a very modular sounding kind of thing, a little bit more old school than Zebra 2 is. Discovery Pro, definitely nice. I'm a big fan of that. Get that Nord lead sounds kind of thing. And let's see what else. Noisemaker is always good. I mean, that's stuff that's cross-platform, which is great. And this is available as a native LinuxVST. Tunefish is a really nice one. I don't use it that often though, but it is a really good little. It's got this kind of phase distortion sound. It's nice. That's free. It's great. Not sure why I don't use it more, but it's good. As far as like the best limiter for Linux, I would say it's this guy. It's simple. I would say it's similar to W1 in a way. It just does the job. It's pretty it's transparent. And I've noticed that the true peaks on it are really good too. I don't have to worry about that as much. I noticed on the Pro L, if you put on the what is it? Oversampling. If you use the oversampling in that, you get a lot of true peak overs after it, which I don't really see with that. And there's always stuff like Manifold is nice, another paid one. And that's kind of a chorus thing. It's really great for getting unison sounds from synths that don't have that. It's nice. It's great for pads and strings. Yeah, just a lot of stuff. But yeah, so that's that. My master channel, it's got that fade to gray thing. This guy here is a nice little toy. Linux DSP, which is now Overtune DSP now, I think. They stopped updating a lot of their stuff from when they were called Linux DSP, and but they have some really good plugins that I bought before they changed over. So this is one of them. It's a really nice multiband compressor. You can use the multiband effects insert on Bitwig Studio to kind of get a similar effect, but a good multiband that's kind of tuned to itself is really good, and this is nice for that. See if I hit, see it's just controlling the lows a little bit. It's great. I can boost it without it going over. The oscilloscope in Bitwig is really nice. Saves me from using a plugin for that. And that's the W1 we went over. Oxford limiter. No biggie, that's an old favorite. And just happened to work for this track more than the Pro L. But yeah, pretty much. I recommend the UHI plugins. For the, there's still, I think there could be more FM synth options for the Linux synth stuff. Between the UHI stuff, the Disco DSP stuff, there's a couple new synths out in the market. What is it? Start with an M. End. Can't remember what it was called. I don't know. There was like a new one that just came out for Linux. It's like called Monica or something. I don't know. But a lot of the FM stuff isn't quite as aimed at the dubstep kind of crowd as one would want. So if you're into those sounds, you're going to have to be bridging massive and figure out how to get that to run really reliable. which I'm sure is possible. I just, in my experience, the way, however I was using it, it just wasn't running well enough for me to want to continue to use it. In the meantime, I will say that Zebra 2 is probably the best FM synth, or for dubsteppy kind of sounds, if you're into that, because you can do your own wavetables and modulate between those and stuff. And there's a lot of good presets out there too. And I like to get those from their site too, just to get good start off points. For instance, let's see here. Kind of shows off what it can do. What do we got? Here? There we go. So like these guys here have some really good sounds. Turn that up a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, so there's some good sounds. Yeah, so I pretty much use that whenever I need really good kind of new school FM type sounds. Yeah. So that's that. Yeah, so that's pretty much how that goes. As far as my system goes, Archie. That's pretty much what I'm rolling with. And it's all on a Toshiba laptop. I typically run with a 3-monitor setup, but for this video it's easier to record and it takes less system resources to do one at a low resolution. So, and also I noticed last time it's really difficult to see on YouTube because you can't really zoom in on anything with 3 monitors going. So hopefully this helps a little bit to see what's going on. And I just hope that more people will give Linux a shot as far as for audio production, because it can be very lean. I don't have a very powerful system. Actually, you know what? Let's pull that up again. So if you look on here, I'm really not running with that crazy of a CPU, and it's a laptop. I have a decent amount of RAM. But it's it's an older system. It was pretty high end when I got it, but I eke out a lot of power and a lot of pretty low latencies for how much I run with it. With full projects going, they're a lot more complex than this and a lot more processing going on. I still keep the same low latencies. I run in a 32-bit float at 48 kilohertz, and the performance is really good. It's really stable. With Bitwig, the plugin sandboxing is great. You have lots of options for how that sandboxing works. You can have it work for each plugin. You can have it to do bridging. You can also use BitBridge, and you can selectively choose to sandbox certain plugins that like to crash or something. And it's great because when something happens, your whole system doesn't go down with it. It's great. So that's pretty much how that goes. And considering, even with a little stuff going on here, there's a lot of mastering processing is all going on this at the same time with no bouncing of tracks. So it's pretty good performance. Let's see. So we're seeing some spikes in here now, but I think that's mostly just from everything that's going on in the system right now. And also the mastering stuff takes up a lot. That Oxford limiter is a little heavy. But yeah, also I love to use, another thing I love to use, this guy here. Klangfalter is a great impulse response loader. I use that for pretty much all my reverbs because I love impulse responses, because as you can see here, this one's called Maya's reverb. I have that saved because that's just my reverb sound that I just love, and I use it on everything. And I also use the Klangfilter a lot for speaker cabinet emulation. I use it on bass synths to kind of get that guitar cab sound, and I've got a lot of impulse responses that you can find a lot of these online for free as part of collections. There's also some I've bought from Rosen Digital for guitar stuff mostly. And I do have a few guitar distortion plugins, but I haven't been using them a lot lately since I updated my system last time. But very useful for getting new textures going. So, but yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. As far as my workflow, pretty much everything stays within Bitwig. When I render out of Bitwig, oddly enough, I just simply use Audacity, and that's where I do my normalizing, my final normalizing, and trimming of the file down, and doing encoding to whatever, FLAC or MP3. And it's a pretty simple workflow. It's pretty comparable to what I used to do. Is I would use Ableton in much the same way, and then I would throw it into Wavelab or something like that to do final trimming and any final tuning I need to do on it. One final note, I guess Melodyne does work. I haven't gotten the plugin to work, but the standalone version does work with Wine. So that's definitely a crucial thing for a lot of professional situations, dealing with pro audio. What else? The BBE plugins work really well. Those are kind of like an old school plugin that I'm not sure a lot of people these days really use, but I really love, and I've been using them for forever. I don't think I have any on this track though. This is a nice one, by the way. This is a compressor, and it's part of the Linux DSP stuff, and it's like a console style compression I really like. It's got that kind of easy, you can slam it and it doesn't really, it's pretty transparent. It's not going to give you like limiting, but it's great. Get a little smack to it. Along with the Pressworks compressor, I use the heck out of that, but I don't think I used it on this track. Yeah, no Pressworks on here. Maybe on the bass. No, I use using the dyno on there too. Oh, but Pressworks on the piano though. It's my favorite compressor I use on everything. At least on the track level, and then a lot of times on the mix bus I'll use the mix. I'll use the macro for a bus compressor. It works really good for just getting that little bit of a pump on it before hitting the limiter. Yeah, I'm not too good at this, but hopefully that helps out some people. Feel free to ask some questions, and I will see what I can do about answering. I feel I'm probably one of the early people to fully adopt this kind of setup after Bitwig came out, and I learned a lot along the way, so I'm trying to figure out how to impart what I've learned to help other people, and as far as that goes. But I love the Switch, and I'm glad I did it, and now I can do everything I need to do inside my favorite operating systems. And I hope you can too at some point. But it's not for everybody. Some people should just stay on Windows, and with whatever DAW is working, that's great. But if you're someone that really likes Linux and you like the environment of it, the ecosystem of it, just know that there is definitely viable ways of doing it now where it isn't too complicated to get going. So that's how it is. All right, so leave me some questions or something. And don't forget to check out my music on djmaya.com. And I'll go from there.